Sweeping across the country from California to Maine. Up to 3 feet of snow in the west, changing over to a wintry mix in the Midwest, and by Thursday hitting the East Coast. Will it be a Thanksgiving washout? Al Roker is here. Also, the major shortage in air traffic control, just as holiday travel is expected to break records. Also tonight, the major breakthrough after more than a year of fighting. President Biden announcing Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. When will it take effect? And what does it mean for the war against Hamas in Gaza? President-elect Trump vowing to hike tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China on day one. How those countries are responding and how will it impact the prices you pay? The Biden administration proposing drugs used for weight loss like Ozempic be covered by Medicare and Medicaid. More than 7 million Americans could benefit. But will the new Trump administration go along with it? The warning if you're flying this holiday season, major airports being targeted by car theft rings. And after the devastation from Hurricane Helene, the band marching on to the biggest Thanksgiving celebration of them all.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. Weather, which you can see, and FAA staffing shortages, which you can't see, are complicating and maybe delaying many of your holiday travel plans tonight. With record numbers of people on the move this holiday, it doesn't take much to make things unravel. We've certainly been seeing that in delays linked to shortages of air traffic controllers. The FAA warning for the potential of ground stops. Weather, of course, the big story this holiday. A major system could slow travel in the central U.S. from tomorrow into Thanksgiving. Al Roker will have the forecast in a moment, but first here's Tom Costello.
36 hours before Thanksgiving, and the weather threat is growing. Rain delays on the East Coast and the West, and more on the way. The biggest choke point, Newark airspace, with ground stops and flight delays due to the ongoing shortage of air traffic controllers.
We will use traffic flow management initiatives to deal with any staffing shortages on that particular day in this airspace, and we expect to have some of those shortages.
To address the ongoing shortage, the FAA has been moving control of some Newark airspace to Philly controllers. The FAA continues hiring new controllers, but it'll take years to get fully up to staff. While close calls between planes have dropped 72% this year, the FAA and NTSB are investigating 2 incidents at Boston Logan Monday. An American plane clipping the wing of a Frontier plane and a JetBlue plane under tow clipping a Cape Air flight. No injuries.
So now I have to wait all the way until Wednesday.
United Boeing 737 off your right from lane 17.
Meanwhile, Denver International preparing for 3 inches of snow overnight as 3 feet falls in the mountains. The nation's 3rd busiest airport, handling 250,000 passengers a day this week. DIA is also the busiest hub for both United and Southwest. The average Southwest plane flies 8 to 10 flights a day. They've got to move fast. They've got 45 minutes. Get all the bags off, put the new bags on, and get back up in the air again.
We're just trying to help people get from point A to point B with the least amount of pain as possible.
Time-lapse video of the megastorm earlier this month that dropped 20 inches on DIA.
Any snow event that we have over an inch, we could have upwards near 150 pieces of equipment just on the airfield.
Meanwhile, American's 24/7 maintenance team at JFK has been working ahead, prepping the fleet for this record-breaking week.
They're in the air all day. They come here at night, and we do what we need to do to get them back in the air and fly safely and reliably for us.
Every airline tells us they've spent months preparing for the here and now.
And Tom, we understand the FAA is also opening up more airspace for commercial flights this week.
Yeah, that's right. Military airspace off the East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico opened up. Also putting a pause on rocket launches in Florida. The hope is that frees up more space that can move things along even faster, Lester.
All right, Tom Costello, thanks. Let's bring in Al Roker now. He's tracking this powerful cross-country storm system on the move.
That's right, Lester. The West Coast tomorrow looking good, but Colorado snow will cause a problem. Heavy rain into the Appalachians and the Ohio River Valley. So Midwest rain picking up for the evening. I-80, I-64, I-65. 5. Rocky's going to be a big problem. Thanksgiving Day, interior snow, but rain up and down the eastern seaboard, so a real mess for the Thanksgiving Day parade. A cold blast starts to make its way in. That will set up lake effect snow around the Great Lakes, a wintry feel making its way into the south. In the Great Lakes, especially the leeward side of the eastern Great Lakes, we could be looking at up to 3 feet of snow. And Lester, this is just the opening salvo of the coldest air coming in direct from Siberia.
Here we go. All right, Al, thanks very much. And if you're parking your car at the airport this holiday, the warning you'll want to hear about coming up a bit later in the program. But right now, let's turn to the breaking news from the Middle East. President Biden announcing a ceasefire deal to end the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Andrea Mitchell now with late details on that.
Just hours after new Israeli strikes against Hezbollah targets in Beirut, the Iranian-backed militia the U.S. designates as a terror group.
Have some good news to report from the Middle East.
President Biden announcing both sides have agreed to a ceasefire.
Let's be clear. Israel did not launch this war. The Lebanese people did not seek that war either.
The latest conflict started a day after the October 7th Hamas attacks, when Hezbollah began firing rockets from Lebanon into Israel. With the deal, some 80,000 Israelis who evacuated from the north can now go home, while Lebanese officials say more than 3,000 of its citizens have been killed, more than 1 million displaced by the Israeli strikes. Israel's prime minister backing the ceasefire, saying it is no longer the same Hezbollah. We have set it back decades. Netanyahu also saying Israel has killed Hezbollah's leader and its top deputies, destroyed most of the group's missiles and rockets, killed thousands of terrorists and destroyed their tunnels. Netanyahu also saying Israel reserves the right to resume fighting if Hezbollah breaks the ceasefire, and he'll now focus on the threat from Iran, while President Biden is hoping for a deal in Gaza.
People of Gaza have been through hell, and Hamas has refused for months and months to negotiate a good faith ceasefire and a hostage deal. And so now Hamas has a choice to make. Their only way out is to release the hostages, including American citizens.
And Andrew, the ceasefire starts in a few hours, and Biden officials have been briefing President-elect Trump's team, we understand.
That's right, Lester. A U.S. official says they told them a few days ago that this deal was coming together with Israel's approval. President Biden said he's going to push to get the hostages released from Gaza, but U.S. officials say it's not likely to happen before he leaves office. Lester.
Andrea Mitchell in our Washington newsroom. Thanks. Tonight, President-elect Trump is laying the groundwork for the new tariffs he has promised to impose, posting to social media about the added costs he wants on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. Hallie Jackson has details.
The day after the election, Deer Stag's owner Rick Muscat called his shoe factory in China to stockpile whatever they could send before Inauguration Day and before long-promised Trump tariffs kick in.
We would take everything they could get us to ship before Chinese New Year.
That move, maybe just in time, with President-elect Trump now announcing on his first day in office not just a 10% added tariff on China, but also 25% tariffs on anything imported from Mexico and Canada, America's two biggest trading partners. Online, Mr. Trump suggesting it's retaliation for the fentanyl entering the U.S., those countries deflecting blame, and the president-elect referencing migrants coming from Mexico and Canada.
I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together.
Mr. Trump's proposal could blow up the trade agreement he himself helped negotiate in his first term.
We got it done.
And could be challenged in court. Remember, tariffs are a tax on things other countries send here, and those other countries don't pay the tax directly. It gets passed down to companies instead, and often to you. The U.S. relies on both Canada and Mexico for cars and car parts, from Chevy pickups to Chrysler minivans. So the auto industry now bracing for a blow, including in states like Michigan, which Mr. Trump won. Mexico supplies more than half the fruits and veggies coming into the U.S., meaning your grocery bill could rise too. Already, economists predict inflation could tick up nearly 1% if these tariffs go into effect. And that's still an if, since Mr. Trump has used the threat of tariffs as a negotiating tactic before. But if he follows through?
We're a small business, and we can't afford to carry all those costs.
The owners of this Washington pet store worry about having to charge their customers more because the shop would pay more for imported harnesses and toys.
There's a point at which the consumer is going to say, you know, this isn't in my family's budget. We can't do this.
Today, one Chinese official warns no one will win a trade war, and the Mexican president's previewing possible retaliatory tariffs if President-elect Trump does make good on his threat. Lester?
Hallie Jackson, thanks. Now to the visit to Texas today by President-elect Trump's new border czar, saying he is preparing to carry through on Trump's plan for mass deportations and warning Democrats who might be vowing to block the deportation effort, don't test us. Gabe Gutierrez now with late details.
Today, President-elect Trump's border czar in Texas, saying he's ready to carry out Trump's campaign pledge to secure the border and deport undocumented immigrants, starting with criminals.
Let me be clear. There is going to be a mass deportation because we just finished a mass illegal immigration crisis on the border.
After more than 10 million illegal border crossings in the last 4 years, Tom Homan says he plans to take the handcuffs off Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE. But a major question is how he'll get the manpower to do it.
Do you believe that local authorities should help enforce federal immigration laws?
Oh, absolutely. I think we have to.
Jeffrey Gaylor is the sheriff of Harford County, Maryland, one of dozens across 21 states that are part of ICE's 287G program, which allows the feds to delegate specialized immigration functions to state and local law enforcement.
This isn't stopping people on the street saying, show me your papers. They're brought in, they're arrested for something that they have committed, an act they've committed against the citizens of our community, and at that point they're held accountable for the action of being in the country illegally.
One of his deputies showed us how the program is run out of the county jail, where trained corrections officers can look through ICE's database and detain suspects arrested for other crimes for up to 48 hours if ICE wants to pick them up to deport them.
Do you anticipate this program ramping up potentially in this next administration?
I believe so. I believe we're going to be very busy.
The immigration debate exploding in this county.
I was angry. I was actually very angry.
Where Patty Morin's 37-year-old daughter Rachel, a mother of 5, was murdered last year, police say by an undocumented immigrant who was released into the U.S.
And I want people to be protected. That's all. I don't want any more life lost.
Still, migrant advocates say the 287G program gives local police an unlawful excuse to help deport people.
This hurts those families. This leads to worse public safety outcomes. It erodes a sense of trust in communities and hurts the economy.
Does this amount to racial profiling?
No, not at all. Again, it's everybody is screened.
Some Democrats now vowing to resist Trump's deportation plan.
We are not going to cooperate in any way in that effort.
Denver's mayor threatened to post local police at the county line to block federal immigration officers. Then he backtracked.
We have no plan to do that, and we really hope that we don't ever have to do that.
Trump's new border czar with this response tonight.
Don't test us. The nation wants a safe country.
3 Trump allies tell NBC News the president-elect is expected to sign up to 5 executive orders aimed at dealing with immigration as soon as he's sworn in. Lester?
Gabe Gutierrez at the White House. Thanks. In 60 seconds, how those popular drugs used for weight loss could become a whole lot more affordable for millions of people. It's a potential game changer for millions struggling with weight loss. The Biden administration proposing a rule change that could lead to expensive in-demand drugs like Ozempic being covered by Medicare and Medicaid. Stephanie Gosk explains.
Tonight, a proposal that could dramatically change the battle against obesity. The Biden administration looking to expand Medicaid and Medicare coverage to include weight loss medications.
How big a deal is this potentially for your patients?
Oh my goodness, this would be wonderful.
For now, Medicaid and Medicare only cover the popular drugs, including Ozempic, if patients are diabetic or have certain obesity-related conditions. People struggling with obesity alone are forced to pay out of pocket at roughly $1,000 a month. Dr. Lori DiMattia is an obesity specialist.
It's heartbreaking to have one specific treatment option be so effective and yet so expensive. It keeps it out of reach for many, many people.
The HHS says 7.4 million beneficiaries would qualify at a cost of $36 billion over the next decade. But there are obstacles. The Congressional Budget Office recently reported that a plan like this would cost billions more to Medicare than the administration projects. There is also a mandatory 60-day public comment period before enacting a new rule, leaving the ultimate decision up to the next administration. President-elect Trump's choice to run Medicare and Medicaid, Dr. Mehmet Oz, has publicly supported the use of weight loss drugs. But Robert Kennedy Jr., Mr. Trump's pick to head HHS, has argued lifestyle changes are the key to tackling obesity.
They're counting on selling it to Americans because we're so stupid and so addicted to drugs.
Dr. DiMattia recommends a combination of lifestyle changes and medication.
There's people who don't believe or agree that that is a disease, and yet it impacts over 150 other different illnesses.
What's interesting here, Lester, is that private insurers often follow Medicare. So if this rule is enacted, it could mean many more millions of Americans could suddenly get coverage for these medications.
Much bigger impact.
That's
All right.
right.
Stephanie, thanks much. Coming up, if you're parking your car at the airport this holiday, we've got a warning you'll want to hear about next. We're back now with a consumer alert for anyone who's flying this holiday season and parking a car. Authorities warning of rings of car thieves on the prowl at major airports across the country. Emily Aketa has what travelers need to know.
Adding to the stress of holiday travel, tonight new warnings over thieves targeting cars parked at airports across the country. At the world's busiest airport, more than 300 cars have been stolen this year, according to Atlanta police, 3 times as many as last year.
It is frustrating. We're not the only airport that is experiencing this increase in auto thefts. We are taking steps to prevent this.
There is something very off.
It happened to Atlanta resident Wes Clark. When he was traveling overseas last month, his BMW was taken.
I parked intentionally right by a camera, so super surprised when the car was gone.
In Texas, police say they recently arrested the leader of a Cuban auto theft group that targets airports in multiple states, accused of stealing nearly $5 million worth of cars from Dallas-Fort Worth alone, using technology to reprogram key fobs, according to court documents.
If they see something, they need to say something.
Greg Erie oversees security at major airports in the New York City area and says auto theft has progressively become an organized crime issue nationwide.
They're doing it for the increasingly high resale value on these vehicles and the fact that they can get them out of the country and sell them overseas.
As tens of thousands park at airport lots, agencies like Port Authority now ramping up security, increasing police patrols, and embracing technology like license plate readers.
So what can you do to protect your car? Experts say make sure there are no valuables in sight. And on top of locking your vehicle, consider additional security measures like a tracking system or a steering wheel lock to help drive thieves away this holiday season. Emily Ikeda, NBC News, Newark, New Jersey.
And next for us tonight, the remarkable comeback for a band that made it through a hurricane and all the way to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.